Good morning, everyone. I'm Kelly Green, MLA for Richmond-Steveston and MC for this morning's very exciting announcement. I acknowledge with respect the history, customs and culture of the Coast Salish people on whose traditional territory and home we meet. And it's very great to see so many people here for this big announcement, one that will be a huge benefit for Richmond today and years to come. Let's welcome our guest speakers, Premier John Horgan, Adrian Dix, Minister of Health, Vivian Eliopoulos, President and CEO of Vancouver Coastal Health, Natalie Meixner, President and CEO of the Richmond Hospital Foundation, and Dr. Daniel Kopac, Head, Department of Surgery, Richmond Hospital. Let's begin with our announcement, and it's my pleasure to introduce Premier John Horgan for today's big news.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, everyone. I, too, want to acknowledge our presence on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people. And before we get into the substance of the announcement, I just want to pause for a moment and reflect on the workplace accident in Kelowna yesterday that has taken lives and is currently being investigated by WorkSafe and the coroner's office. Obviously tragic. When people go to work in the morning, they expect to be able to come home in the evening, and it is just a very sad day for those families that have been affected, as well as all of the people in Kelowna, and I wanted to acknowledge that on behalf of the province, that our thoughts are with the people in Kelowna. I want to also acknowledge being here today, a year after Minister Dix and I and Natalie and others gathered at this site to talk about the new Richmond Hospital. At that time, we came together to announce that we had extended and expanded the concept plan and we're moving to the business plan stage. Now, we had said, Natalie and I spoke back in 2016 about the urgent need for more primary care and acute care capacity here at this site. And we talked about that, Minister Dix and I, and we worked on a concept plan and we brought it forward and we discussed it with practitioners, we discussed it with staff, we discussed it with the foundation and others. And we all agreed that the concept at that time was inadequate for the needs of Richmond going forward. So we went back to the drawing board. Oftentimes in these sorts of situations, people want immediate success, they want to move quickly. And I normally would agree with that. But in this instance, taking another year to get it right means that we have a better facility coming forward. And I'm proud to announce that the Government of British Columbia has approved, get this, $860 million to build the new North Tower and also to add more capacity to the emergency room, to add more capacity to imaging, to add more mental health beds, and a host of other initiatives that are making this possible. I'm very excited about the work that's been done, not just by hard-working people here in Richmond, but in Victoria, crunching the numbers, working with Coastal Health and Vivian and her team to make sure we had the right fit for Richmond, not just for today, but for the decades ahead. There you go. 113 new beds, twice as many spaces for pre- and post-surgical care, more emergency room space, as I said, and 100% carbon neutral facility. And as we come through one of the most difficult early summers in my recent memory, I think it's absolutely critical and imperative that we acknowledge that climate change is not just passing by, it is here with us. We need to make sure as we build our communities for the future, we're doing it with climate change in mind, and this project does that. It'll create thousands of new jobs in construction, and most importantly, it will be a signal to the people of Richmond that the care that they deserve and the care that they need is on the way. I really want to thank the Richmond Hospital Foundation for being tireless advocates for this project, not just to get over the finish line, but to make sure we did it in a way that meets the needs of the people of Richmond, meets the need of the extraordinary staff here that have been practicing in a building that is decades beyond its best before date. And now we're going to be in a position going forward to make it the best hospital Richmond has ever seen, the largest capital expenditure in this community. It's an exciting day for Richmond. It's an exciting day for British Columbia. And with that, I'm passing it back to Kelly, or am I just throwing to Adrian? I'm passing it back to one of you. So, there you go. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Premier. It truly is an exciting day for the people in Richmond, and we're very grateful for your leadership on this matter. Of course, this project would not have reached this point without the leadership of our Minister of Health. So at this time, I'd like everyone to welcome Minister Adrian Dix. Thank you.
So you'd think I'd be used to that by now. I am fired up to be here today, fired up to be here with Vivian, with Natalie, with the whole team, with the Premier, with Kelly. Fired up to be here with Aman Singh and Henry Yao, our MLAs, who have been fierce advocates for this project. Honored to be here, of course, with Kelly, a fierce advocate as a city councillor, a fierce advocate for this project now as a newly elected MLA. Want to acknowledge Teresa Watt, the MLA for Richmond Centre, Richmond North Centre, who has been a strong supporter of this project as well, and the people of Richmond. I think we need great healthcare facilities for communities and patients first, but for great healthcare workers and great healthcare professionals like we have in Richmond. We've been through a pandemic. We're dealing with the public health emergency that is the overdose crisis. The last month and the next month, I believe, will be the biggest, most challenging, largest in terms of demand in the history of the healthcare system. Our healthcare workers, our healthcare professionals deserve our gratitude at 7 o'clock in the evening, and at 7 o'clock in the morning, and at noon, and at midnight, and at 4 in the morning. They have been extraordinary. And here in Richmond, in acute care, they deserve a hospital built for the 21st century, and that is what they're going to get. I want to also acknowledge Chad Peterson and Natalie and the whole team at the Richmond Hospital Foundation. I believe our hospital foundations serve a very important role in public health care. They drive in the community support for our healthcare institutions, community involvement. And I think the experience of working on this hospital project in Richmond, and I think people such as Natalie and Chad and the Yurkovich family and everyone else who've been part of this have demonstrated this and shown this, that in building this together, in advocating for it together, and getting it approved together and building it together, we are building a stronger, more united, more thoughtful, more generous community in Richmond. It's doing things together, as we've shown, that makes us better communities, and this has happened in Richmond, and the Richmond Hospital Foundation and Vancouver Coastal Health deserve enormous credit for that. $860.8 million, Premier. $860.8 million. And it's a considerable sum of money. But when we think about what the current tower built in 1964, the year I was born, 1964, that what it's given to this community and the work that have been done and the babies that have been born and the people who have been comforted in their last hours and the people who have been sent back into the world healthier on the road to recovery from injury. This is money well spent. Money that will serve us for decades to come. This is a fantastic project, and I know the Premier talked about it, and you never want to repeat the best lines of the Premier, because he generally does them better than I do. But I just say this, 113 increase in the number of beds, from 240 to 353 beds, increase in the emergency department and care spaces by 22, operating rooms from 8 to 11, procedure rooms from 5 to 8, pre- and post-care surgical spaces from 26 to 69, a modern, dynamic, extraordinary medical imaging center. This is a hospital for the 21st century. I am so proud to be with you today. So proud to be with our MLAs from Richmond, so proud to be with the community in Richmond. This is the hospital we need, and over the next few years, we are going to get it done, under construction and built. It is a challenge to build hospitals on an existing site, as everyone knows, and this one will be open for patients, substantially completed the tower in 2027, open for patients in 2028, and it will involve moving things and services around the site to get that done. It's going to be a challenging few years. But everybody I speak to in Richmond says it will be worth it to know that the new facility is coming and it's underway and it's happening and we are building it. And so thank you, Richmond. Thank you to the community. Thank you to the foundation. And thank you to all of you for coming out with us today. This is going to be a great day. Let's get on with the building. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. I'm also very proud of how the community has come together to support the Richmond Hospital. And it's great to know that in Richmond, people will get their health care in a modern, up-to-date facility. A major partner in this project is Vancouver Coastal Health. They were a driving force behind the expansion of the plans for the hospital to make it even bigger and more robust. So please welcome Vivian Eliopoulos with Vancouver Coastal Health.
Thank you, MLA Green. I would also like to recognize that we are meeting this morning on the unceded traditional Coast Salish lands, including the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh Nations. On behalf of Vancouver Coastal Health and all of our partners in care, I want to share how very excited we are to see this project move forward today. The new Richmond Hospital Tower will allow us to better meet the diverse and complex healthcare needs of our community partners in Richmond. Vancouver Coastal Health, including our team of staff and medical staff, look forward to the expansions we'll be making in pediatric emergency, surgical, medical imaging, and mental health services to create a rejuvenated and welcoming space for patients to receive exceptional care at Richmond Hospital. We're deeply grateful to our partners in this development, including the Richmond Hospital Foundation, the Province of British Columbia, the Ministry of Health, and especially our community partners who have been both collaborative and patient as we work together to get this right. During our planning phase, we had time to rethink our tower plan, which now includes improved patient flow between services, new state-of-the-art technology in medical imaging, and a much-needed expansion to our emergency department. I'd also like to take the time to thank our team of incredibly dedicated staff and medical staff at Richmond Hospital for the exemplary patient and client care they provide day in and day out. We look forward to working with the Foundation, the City of Richmond, and the provincial government as this new expansion takes shape. And now I would like to turn it back over to MLA Kelly Green, who will continue introducing our other project partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. Everyone knows that it's people that make a hospital great, and that's the case with Richmond Hospital. The people at the Richmond Hospital Foundation are at the heart of fundraising efforts for the new hospital. Please welcome the tireless Natalie Meixner with Richmond Hospital Foundation.
Thank you, Minister.
There you go.
Thank you. Just right. Well, good morning, everyone. Today is an extraordinary day for all of us, for the healthcare teams at Richmond Hospital, and for the entire Richmond community. This commitment from the province shows that people come first, and healthcare is a high priority, both today and for generations to come. Thank you, Premier Horgan, Minister Dix, not only for listening, but for taking action to make sure that Richmond has expanded new facilities that it so desperately needs. Richmond Hospital Foundation has raised $50 million toward the new Yurkovich Family Pavilion at Richmond Hospital, with the generous support of philanthropists from all across our community. To these champions, the donors who have put their full trust in us at Richmond Hospital Foundation, thank you. Thank you for your relentless belief that this would happen. Thank you for helping make it possible. And thank you all for inspiring us. To Tony and Nancy Yurkovich, who said yes to making the lead donation, to Rick Illich, who said yes to leading the Act Now campaign, and to all of the supporters, including the media, who have been with this project from the very beginning, our deep gratitude to each of you. Healthcare matters to everyone in Richmond, and the momentum continues to grow each and every day. This past year has put the importance of our Richmond healthcare teams right at the forefront of our lives, and we are very grateful to each of them for their dedication, their care, and their compassion. With this incredible moment today comes a wonderful reminder that regardless of where you came from, how long you have been here, we are all fortunate to be part of this richly diverse community and to benefit from the cherished Canadian value of universal health care. Thank you once again, Premier Horgan, Minister Dix, Vivian, and your team for your leadership. We in Richmond look forward to seeing progress on this important project following today's announcement. And I just want to say to the project team, go for it.
For you, Kelly. This is my job.
I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Division of labor.
Thanks so much for those words, Natalie. And thanks to those generous donors in Richmond. It's coming together for projects like this that make our community truly great. Hospitals are also about healthcare workers. They work tirelessly to provide care for people. And for a healthcare workers' perspective on today's announcement, please welcome Dr. Daniel Kopac.
Thank you, MLA Green, and thank you very much, and distinguished guests. I'm very happy to be here today and couldn't be more thrilled that we're moving forward with this important project. I'm a little blown away, actually. It's really been incredible today. I hope you're as excited as I am for the new Richmond Tower to officially open its doors in a few short years. The new Richmond Tower will allow us to better meet the more complex healthcare that patients require. With this new tower, we're going to see a significant expansion of pediatric, emergency, mental health, and surgical services that will meet our community's needs for years to come. As a healthcare provider and a surgeon, I see firsthand and know all too well the importance of these critical services for patients, staff, and the community of Richmond. This new tower will enhance the patient experience by providing a modern and improved patient-oriented setting. The facility will also recognize and incorporate the diversity of our staff and the community in which we serve. Here at Richmond, we are lucky. We have an amazing team of healthcare professionals in the hospital, ready to fully leverage these new state-of-the-art facilities for the benefit of our residents. The new tower will be a great opportunity for our staff to practice their skills in our more modern facility. Speaking for the Department of Surgery, the new tower means stepping into the future by allowing us opportunities to upgrade our aging infrastructure. It will also provide us the opportunity to be better prepared for years to come by attracting and retaining the best and brightest surgical talent to our new facility. On behalf of the Department of Surgery and staff throughout the hospital, we would like to thank everyone here in the community for your support over the years. And personally, I can't wait to continue partnering with you for our collective health for years to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doctor, and to all of the healthcare workers for all that you've done over the past 18 months. I know that it has been extraordinarily stressful. This brings us to the end of the formal part of today's announcement, and I want to thank everyone for being here. And thanks and gratitude to all of our special guests. Thanks.
We are going to move to questions now. As a reminder to everybody on the phone, please press *1 to enter the queue. For anybody on site, please line up at the microphone. Marlene in the blue dress there. Identify yourself and the outlet that you are from. First question today is from Andy Lee, Ming Pao.
Go ahead, Andy.
Andy, you just have to go over to the microphone. Oh, you don't have a question anymore. Okay, great. We'll go to the phone then. Richard Zussman, Global News.
Around Vancouver once again playing host during the FIFA 2026 World Cup. What would it take for the province to sign off on BC placing dues for the World Cup?
Well, I think, sorry, we had a bit of technical difficulty there, Richard. I think you were asking about FIFA's application to come to Vancouver for World Cup 2026. Is that correct?
It is, yep. And what it would take, I know you've had concerns about it, but with Montreal now out, my understanding is there's a significant push happening to have Vancouver back in. And I just want to get a sense about what it would take for the province to sign off on BC being a host, or Vancouver being a host city.
Well, certainly with Montreal stepping away, it does create a real opportunity for Vancouver. You'll remember when the initial proposal was put before our government, we were just barely elected at that point. We were looking at the fiscal situation. We were making determinations about how best to go forward in a minority situation. And it just didn't seem to us at that time. There was other interest in Canada, Toronto, Montreal, Edmonton, and others. And so when we looked at the FIFA presentation, it was a little rich for our blood, and we chose to give it a pass. But now, fast forward to 2021, we're in a completely different situation. We're coming out of a global pandemic. Our tourism sector has been buffeted perhaps more than any other sector over the past 16 months. And the prospect of inviting the world to Vancouver in 2026 all of a sudden takes on a whole new meaning, not just for those passionate about soccer, but those who would want to see an opportunity to reacquaint the world with the splendor of British Columbia and particularly Vancouver. So I have had some preliminary discussions with the FIFA representatives here in Canada, and we've made it abundantly clear that if the proposal is as rich as that was proposed back in 2018, we wouldn't be interested. But I think that we are, again, FIFA's in a different place, Vancouver, British Columbia is in a different place. We're prepared to entertain those discussions and see where we go.
A follow-up? Richard, do you have a follow-up? No.
Sorry about that. And there's Minister Dix, but the Premier can weigh in if you'd like. And there's two of them for colleagues. So, Minister, the BC Human Rights Commissioner said this morning there are some circumstances to implement a vaccination status policy, such as proof of vaccination requirement, but only if other less intrusive means of preventing COVID transmission are inadequate for the setting. In your mind, does that include mandatory vaccines for long-term care staff, where COVID prevention means have at times been intrusive? And I'd also like to ask you about, we've heard half a dozen stories or so a day about paramedics and patients, about failures associated with the province's emergency response services. Will the system be overhauled? Will additional staff be hired? And is there being any consideration being given to getting rid of the on-call staffing to be replaced by full-time staffing?
So one at a time. I didn't fully capture the first question. I think you said the Human Rights Commissioner. You may have. The story I read was about the seniors advocate. In any event, the issue of vaccination is obviously an important one. It gives me a chance, just briefly, to acknowledge the community of Richmond, which is now has a vaccinated dose 1 population higher than the provincial average. It trailed the provincial average for a time because people got together, including Henry Yao and Aman Singh and Kelly Green and Teresa Watt and the community and the mayor and really doctor leaders in the community as well. We now in Richmond have a higher vaccination rate than the provincial average. The local health area is significantly over 80%. and the provincial average, as you know, over 12 is 79%. So that indicates what we can do together and the singular importance of vaccination. That's true as well in long-term care. You'll know that on January 15th, we had 49 outbreaks in long-term care. We now have none, and that's vaccination. And that 40,000 healthcare workers working in long-term care have been vaccinated. Almost every resident has been vaccinated except some who are not able to be vaccinated. That's vaccination, and you see the impact of that. Last week, the provincial health officer and I made an announcement about changes we'd be making to ensure that all care facilities provide vaccination information. And what will happen in BC is we expect every care worker to be vaccinated. And if it's not the case, that there will be consequences for that, and those consequences will include other steps that need to be taken to ensure infection control. But it's our expectation, and certainly now our expectation, given the effectiveness of these vaccines, their safety record as vaccines, because remember, care workers were vaccinated first before everyone else starting in December of 2020, that we expect everyone to be vaccinated. And that's why we're making such an extraordinary effort here in Richmond and across BC to raise the level of dose 1 immunizations over 80% now in the adult population, close to 80% in the over 12 population, and that's going to continue. With respect to the ambulance service, I'll be making an announcement tomorrow with respect to some changes to the ambulance service. But I would say this, that the question you ask, are we going to move from an on-call service system to a system of full-time and part-time permanent staff? That's what we've been doing. When I became Minister of Health, about 36% of ambulance paramedics were full or part-time permanent staff. That number, by the time our changes are made, the ones that are proposed to be made, it'll be over 50%. That's significant progress in that regard, because I believe, and that's why we're hiring hundreds of full and part-time staff people in the ambulance service. That's why, other than mental health and addictions, the ambulance service has received the largest increases, more than double the increases that had been in place in the previous 4 years by the previous government, almost 8% a year every year. And why we continue to do more, because I'll say two things that I expect from BC Emergency Health Services. One, when people need an ambulance and call 911, an ambulance should get there. And two, that we should be an outstanding employer. Those are our priorities, and that's what I am continuing to pursue. It's what we've been pursuing for the last number of years and what we inherited as an ambulance service. And I want to acknowledge the really exceptional work of ambulance paramedics everywhere, dealing with the challenges we're facing. And I want to particularly underline their work in dealing with the overdose public health emergency and the challenge that presents, including to the health and the well-being of our ambulance paramedics. I want to acknowledge their outstanding work. I am with them, and I'm with those who called 911, and we're going to continue to make improvements and to ensure that we have the best ambulance service in the world.
Next question is from Sabrina Wong, Fairchild Radio.
Hi there. Thank you so much for taking my question. So I'd like to ask, could you offer any more details to the timetable of the construction of the hospital? So specifically, when will construction begin, and when do you expect it to be completed and start offering services?
Thank you very much for the question. So what we're doing today is approving the business plan and the budget for the project, which is $860.8 million. What we're doing here is different than some of the other, and I'll spare reporters on the phone who've heard them before, the long list of hospital projects across BC that we've undertaken. But this one has its particular complexities in that we're obviously operating here at 100% plus every day and will be until the new tower and the new services are open. So what you're going to see first is doing the site preparations, and that work is happening through 2021, 2022. That site preparation work, the contract letting, and then the site preparation work. And then we have to demolish the buildings where the tower is going to be put in place, prepare the site, and then build the tower. So that process is going to be underway. So you're going to see first site preparation, which is necessary on a site like this. Then after that, the request for qualifications, the request for proposals, the contract award, and then the building of the tower and the other services. And so work is, now that we've got the business plan approved and the money in place, the work starts now.
Sabrina, do you have a follow-up?
Yes. So I believe in the announcement it was mentioned that you had to rethink the original plan for the hospital. So I was wondering, what kind of considerations did the province have that made revisions to this original plan necessary?
Because this is a hospital that needs to, and a hospital project that needs to serve the people of Richmond for decades to come. The last time we did this in this kind of significant way, it was 1964. It was 57 years ago. And it served us well in that time. So a hospital has to work as a hospital. It's not just completing a project at the lowest cost, but it has to, the emergency rooms have to connect with the wards, have to connect with diagnostic imaging. There are many people who come to the hospital who aren't here to stay, but here for particular services or for day surgeries. So it has to work. And what we found was that the concept plan, the original concept plan simply wasn't adequate to what we needed as a hospital. And that involves all of those things. So yes, the cost is considerably higher than it was initially envisioned. But that's a cost we'll be paying over the coming decades when this hospital serves this community. $860.8 million is a lot more than we originally envisioned, but it's the right amount. It's the right project for Richmond. And with the enhanced services for mental health addictions, for emergency rooms, for ICU, for diagnostic, for patient flow, for new beds in the tower, it's the project that Richmond needs.
And I would just add that as Adrian and I have been working on this project since 2017, in fact, talking about it before then, it was always with a view to how will the people who work here provide the services that the people of Richmond need and deserve. And so you need to talk to the people who are going to be inside the building about the flow of traffic. These are basic things. And as we talk to people, and Dr. Kopac, prior to the event today, was talking about his first review of the initial plan and scratching his head saying, well, I guess we can make that work. Well, we shouldn't be in a place when we're spending $860.8 million to make it work. Or to get by, or to find a way to use duct tape and baling twine. This is a state-of-the-art facility that will be having professionals providing services to people. We're pretty excited about it, and we took the time to get it right, and I know that the people of Richmond will benefit from that, and it's a direct result of input from the people who will work here and from the Hospital Foundation and the people of Richmond. That's why we're here today, and that's why this project is the size and scope that we've concluded at $860.8 million.
Next question is from Maria Rantanen, Richmond News.
Hi, so I'm just wondering with the 7-year timeline, I mean, that's quite far out, and you did give some of the detail there, but I'm wondering with the population of Richmond and the Lower Mainland growing and aging, I mean, are you sure it's going to be adequate in 7 years? That is a very long time to look out.
That's part and parcel of why we expanded the business case, why we looked at the concept plan and made it bigger to meet the needs of a growing population. Adrian didn't indulge us in a list of other projects here in the Lower Mainland that have been already begun as well. The replacement of the St. Paul's facility in Metro will be, or in Vancouver, will be a significant significant build that will be, again, preparing for the rest of the 21st century. Upgrades in Burnaby, Royal Columbian just completed a new hospital in Surrey, as well as work in Maple Ridge and in other parts of the valley. We have been focused on making sure that the acute care system across Metro and in fact across British Columbia, in Terrace, Fort St. James, Dawson Creek, on the island in the Cowichan Valley, all of these places have desperately needed upgrades in their acute care facilities, and we're doing that, and we're doing it simultaneously, which is quite extraordinary. The largest capital build in history, and it's putting acute care facilities in place not for today but for the future. And this the Richmond Tower is representative of what we've been doing in every corner of the province.
Maria, do you have a follow-up?
So just a little detail, I'm not sure if you have this with this announcement of 860. So what was 860.8? I corrected my notes. So what was it originally?
Ooh, three. I'll let Adrian get on to that.
Okay.
these things would have been confirmed at the business plan stage, but it would have been in the neighborhood of $350 million, yeah, 350 to 375 in that range. Inevitably, when you're at the concept, you learn more at the business plan stage and so on. But this is a re-envisioned project that we felt was necessary. As someone who's responsible for driving projects forward, you never want to take a step back and rethink. But I think what would have happened had we concluded the initial concept plan would have been that we would have been immediately having to have a major capital project to make the new concept, the new tower in that configuration work. So this is what we've done, and it's an extraordinary amount of money. But in the context of all the things that will happen here at the hospital in the next decades, it's absolutely affordable, and it's what's needed. In Vancouver Coastal Health, we're rebuilding St. Paul's with a similar increase in the number of beds for St. Paul's compared to what it is now to this. We're building a new tower at Lionsgate Hospital. As you know, that's in Vancouver Coastal Health. Then there's the Burnaby project and the new Westminster project at Royal Columbian, and the smaller projects that have just been completed in Langley and Peace Arch, and the new hospital in Surrey. That's very exciting, the new emergency room in Abbotsford and so on. And what it really reflects is that we built most of our hospitals in the late 1950s and 1960s at a particular time in healthcare. And the main difference, one of the main things you're going to see at the new hospital and at all the new hospitals we're building through the region and through the province is one of the significant differences is how we deal with mental health and addictions. The hospitals we have and the space for mental health and addictions reflects the views of those times, which are different than now. And so this hospital will be dealing with that. And yes, the intent is for it to meet the demand. 113 incremental acute care beds is a significant number, but look at all the post-surgical beds, because what we've seen in recent years is a decline in average length of stay across hospitals. So hospitals don't just serve people who are coming in and then staying in the hospital. They're serving the whole community for diagnostics, they're serving the whole community for day surgery. And increasingly, because of the nature of that surgery, because of the extraordinary work of the people behind you, people are able to go home the day they get surgery. When in 1964, when I was born and this hospital was open, this tower was open, they would have been in a hospital for days and days and days and days. So this is why you spend time planning a hospital, and I get frustrated with the length of time it takes sometimes, as the people who work with me know, because I want to move forward. But this is the right project for Richmond.
Next question is from Eric Lai, City News.
To the contractors being killed yesterday in Kelowna's the accident?
Well, just a tragic day for those who were affected by the collapse of the tower, but a tragic day for all of the people of Kelowna, indeed all of British Columbia. As I said in my opening remarks, when people go to work, they have every expectation they're going to be coming home. There's obviously investigations underway. WorkSafe is on site, as is the coroner, and we'll await the findings. But I think today we need to have our thoughts with those who were affected, loss of loved ones, but also those that have been traumatized by an event that, quite honestly, you don't expect to happen on a sunny July day here in British Columbia, but yet it can happen. That means we need to redouble our efforts on workplace safety, and any of the findings that WorkSafe brings forward or the coroner brings forward, we'll certainly be implementing right across the province. But just a tragic day for those individuals, tragic day for the people of Kelowna, and I believe for all British Columbians. It's been a tough month.
Next question is from Mike Hager, Globe and Mail.
Thank you for taking my question. The heat has abated, but it could come back at any time on the south coast. Of course, in the interior, it's very hot now. What is the province doing right now to prepare for another, extraordinary heat wave? We have people whose family members died waiting for ambulances, and there's been a lot of criticism from the union that emergency health services didn't pivot to an emergency footing to increase staffing until the fourth day of the heat wave, which was far too late. What is the province doing right now to improve the situation?
Well, certainly all of the health authorities have intense weather circumstances that they prepare for, whether it's extreme cold, extreme rain, extreme heat. And certainly the Interior Health Authority, where we're still experiencing unseasonably high temperatures, have been doing public service announcements, preparing to assist people, giving information on as many platforms as is possible. Minister Dix will be making more, having more to say tomorrow about emergency health services, as well as, of course, the investigation underway by the coroner and the public health office. I believe that when you have a what's been characterized as a once in a 1,000 year heat dome, you can't prepare for that, but you certainly have to be ready for those eventualities. We'll be better prepared as the summer goes forward, but certainly the information that we're able to glean from the work of the coroner and Dr. Henry will guide us in putting in place more procedures and protocols for the health authorities to follow. And of course, we'll be getting learnings from them as well as frontline workers feed into the system to make sure that we're putting in place the right processes to protect people going forward.
Follow up, Mike?
Sure. Your government has said that it's kind of a hangover from the last provincial government. Is that fair, given you've been in power so long and the ambulance service is still appears to be in such disarray during a crisis like this?
We've made extraordinary changes in how the ambulance service works here in British Columbia over the past 4 years, and indeed we did inherit a system that was completely dysfunctional. In my community, the ambulance paramedics that would have been stationed in Port Renfrew at the end of the highway would have been paid $2 an hour if they didn't get a call. You can't build a system that will serve the needs of all British Columbians by paying skilled workers $2 an hour. So we started by changing that, a collective agreement in place, Minister Dix driving for changes over the past number of months. You will also know we've had successive historic fire seasons, a global pandemic, and despite that, as part of the pandemic response, we put $66 million into emergency health for fixed-wing aircraft for northern and Indigenous and remote communities, as well as more vehicles on the road. I had the honor to attend with ambulance paramedics a couple of calls for overdoses, and I've seen people brought back to life by the skilled professionals that are part and parcel of our emergency health services. I can't speak enough about those individuals. What we need to do as a government is to continue to support them in every way we can. Minister Dix has made that abundantly clear and have more to say tomorrow.
Next question is from Tanya Fletcher, CBC.
Yeah, Premier, I wanted to ask you about the most recent discovery of 160 unmarked graves at Kuper Island, the former residential school site. Have you been in touch with any members of the Penelakut Tribe or any Indigenous leaders in terms of next steps there?
My colleague, or our colleague, Doug Routley, the MLA for the area, he and I were elected together in 2005, represents the Kuper Island community, and he has been in constant contact since the revelations from Tk'emlúps and Secwépemc territory of the discovery of unmarked graves there. You will know that I traveled to Lower Post at the invitation of the Kaska people to participate in the demolition of the last vestiges of the residential school there. Very profoundly moving experience. I grew up in Victoria with kids who had come from the residential school in Port Alberni that went to my high school in Victoria. So I'm intimately aware of these issues from personal experience as well as by reaching out over the past number of years to get a better understanding of how we can have in British Columbia meeting the objectives and the calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Every minister in my government in 2017 had in their mandate letter an obligation to address those calls to action, and we've been working on that. That does not change at all the tragedy of the revelations that we're hearing from communities right across British Columbia, whether it be in Ktunaxa territory, in Kamloops, or on Vancouver Island, which is my home. We've been working and waiting, Minister Murray Rankin, for direction and guidance from host communities. We stand ready. We put resources in on the table to get that initial work done, and we're awaiting direction from the host communities, that being the Tk'emlúps and Secwépemc, who I believe will have more to say later in the week. And with respect to the Penelakut, my colleague Doug Routley is in daily contact there, as are we with representatives from Alert Bay, where there was a residential school, as well as in Port Alberni.
Follow up, Tanya.
Yes, thanks. And you kind of just touched on it there, but is the province's strategy in terms of providing that support or resources going to shift at all? I mean, you've been saying all along since Tacoma that you'd await the lead of First Nations. Is that going to remain the case going forward on a case-by-case basis, or is there anything more proactive that your government will do in broader terms as more of these discoveries emerge?
Well, as I said, Tanya, we were proactive from the day we were sworn in as a government by putting in the mandate letters of every minister, regardless of whether they had a direct connection to Indigenous representation or not. The province has an obligation to fulfill the calls to action. The federal government has an equal obligation, perhaps a larger obligation. The Prime Minister and I spoke about this last week. We're both very, very serious about making sure that our two orders of government are there for Indigenous communities when they call for assistance. But it would be, I think, premature for us to do anything other than to await the direction of the communities that are going through not just the grieving of the revelations of these discoveries, but generational trauma from survivors, children of survivors, grandchildren of survivors. And it is quite profound. And I will never forget my first visit to Lower Post, which is this far away from Yukon on a map, as far away from here as you can get and still be in British Columbia. And the impact that school had on the Kaska, the Taku River Tlingit, and the Tahltan, and other nations that reside in Yukon and Northwest Territories and Northern Alberta. And we collectively have a responsibility, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, to work together on healing. I was very proud of the 9 leaders of nations on southern Vancouver Island coming together and calling for an end of violence and vandalism. We will not heal as individuals or collectively unless we're healing together. That's been the call from Indigenous leaders. That's my call as well to the broader community. We all need to understand each other, respect our past, acknowledge the truth of the past, and then go forward in reconciliation. That's my intention, and that's the intention of my government.
Next question's from Rob Shaw, Check News.
This question's for Minister Dix. Apparently some AstraZeneca doses have been wasted in BC. They expired because people didn't want to get them following the shifting advice from the federal health experts. Can you quantify for us how much and what you think of the fact that happened?
Thanks for the question, Rob. A very small number, and we don't have the exact number yet. As you know, AstraZeneca was distributed through to pharmacies for second doses for those who received AstraZeneca in their first dose, and a very significant number. I think our community pharmacies have done just a remarkable job in dealing with that. And so we were cautious. We had to make an assessment when we distributed AstraZeneca to pharmacies, because it wasn't going to come back, how much we would be able to use. As you rightly point out, there was a change in some of the advice we received from NACI in that time, which I think affected the amount of AstraZeneca we used. So we were able to deliver the amount of people who wanted AstraZeneca. As you know, many people have chosen as well to get their second doses of either Pfizer or Moderna in the larger community clinics. So I think it's a relatively small amount. Where most of the AstraZeneca we have on hand now doesn't expire until August, and it would be our absolute expectation that AstraZeneca, that vaccine, if it's not to be used here, be returned and be provided in other jurisdictions where it can. So I think it's a relatively small amount. I think it really reflects, as you'll know, the chair of Vancouver Coastal Health, who had a big hand in this project announcement today, Dr. Penny Ballum, has done, I think, to call it exceptional is to understate it. And she would say she has a large team around her, including all of the people delivering the vaccine. But I think the people in the community who have delivered our vaccination plan are just doing an exceptional job. I think I saw one public poll that showed 98% good experience at vaccine stations. So we're doing a great job. And one of the key questions with AstraZeneca, Rob, was how much we should distribute through to pharmacy to meet the demand, and the demand's changed. But we'll have an exact number for you, and once we get all of the information gathered, we'll be providing all of that transparently. If some, and I think some relatively small amount was not used, And for the rest of the AstraZeneca we have on hand, it has an expiry date much later in the summer, and we'll be making decisions with the direction of Dr. Ballum and Dr. Henry soon on that.
Rob, do you have a follow-up?
Sure thing. I'm just wondering, because I think it was 3 weeks ago that you were asked, should BC decline additional doses of AstraZeneca from Ottawa, given what was probably going to be a drop in demand? And you and Dr. Henry said, no, you're going to continue to receive them. And the fact that we've had to throw some away when Canada's in the middle of donating those doses to low-income countries that have no doses at all, did we make a mistake there in the way that we estimated AstraZeneca or handled it, and that has resulted in these wasted doses, or what could we have done differently?
Actually, it's quite the contrary, Rob. I think in the interim period, we've received approximately 10,000 doses of AstraZeneca, which is now being held through our central IMSS-BC warehousing and refrigeration systems, and all of that will be available for other use. So the decision to continue to ensure that there is adequate vaccine for BC, which was our significant and consistent message. We were asked if we wanted Johnson & Johnson, we said yes. We were asked if we wanted AstraZeneca, we said yes. Pfizer, yes. Moderna, yes. And the reason we said yes is that immunization is so important to people in this province, and we need to get it done, and we need to have adequate resources. But the effect of us saying yes to AstraZeneca, this work is happening all the time between Ottawa and British Columbia and other provinces, is to ensure that we had adequate amounts to fulfill the demand for second doses. But all of the vaccine we would have received in the period you're talking about, Rob, has expiry dates well into the future. So all of that discussion is irrelevant to whether some number of doses were not able to be delivered at pharmacy. That's a relatively small number of doses, I think, and we'll have an exact number for you later. But really, the question of whether we were to receive more and its impact, given the world situation, that's not a factor.
And I would add, Rob, as you probably know, but for those who were viewing, I've had 2 doses of AstraZeneca. I took counsel and advice from Dr. Henry, from my GP, and also from Dr. Ballum. They were unreserved in their assurance that was the best way forward for me. I was happy to take both AstraZeneca shots, and I encourage those who've had one to consult with your physician and make your choice. But the key here, as Minister Dix has said, is we need to get everyone with a second dose so that we can continue to open up. We're at step 3 of our restart plan. We've seen just an explosion of activity. People are happy to be back together and engaging as we did pre-pandemic, and the best way to get there as fast as we can is to get that second dose.
Lisa Cordasco, Vancouver Sun.
Thank you. Good morning. I would like to ask about the BC Hydro submarine cable that was damaged recently. Large industrial customers may have to cut back on their power, and it does supply 70% of the island's power. Have you been briefed by Hydro about the severity of the issue and whether it means taking a look at Hydro self-sufficiency on Vancouver Island?
As a born and raised islander, I'm always focused on energy issues on Vancouver Island. I'm confident that Hydro has the submarine cable issue in hand. There are redundancies built into the system, but this is an extraordinary turn of events. Minister Ralston is monitoring it closely on behalf of the government. I do believe that Hydro customers should, this is of course a time when fans and those who have the benefit of air conditioning are seeing consumption go up. This is not normal on the south coast, whether it be here in Metro Vancouver or on the island. We're usually into cool weather in the evenings, and the need for continued consumption is not as great as it is right now. That will have an impact on industrial customers, to be sure, but I'm confident that Hydro can manage its load. They've been doing that for a long, long time. They know what they're doing, and they've discovered the problem, they've identified it, they've made it public, and they're taking steps to correct it.
Follow-up, Lisa?
Yes, on the Richmond Hospital project, I would like to ask whatever member of the panel might be best able to answer. Can you give me an example of the kind of stress that the hospital is under now that, the building of this new project will help resolve.
Perhaps Dr. Kopac, do you want to? Well, Lisa, we'll ask Dr. Kopac to respond to that, and I'm sure Minister Dix would also want to just give a 40,000-foot view of what that means, but Dr. Kopac's in it every day, so.
Yes, so thank you for your question. So generally, I can speak from a surgical perspective. The surgical facilities that we have here certainly are showing their age. The operating rooms tend to be quite tight based on the new technologies that have been introduced over the years. And so part of the project going forward is an increase in the amount of operating room space that's available so that we can incorporate technologies both now and in the future. So I think it's a very forward-thinking project with that respect. Being a consultant surgeon and spending a lot of time in the emergency department, I can also tell you that it will be a very much needed improvement to the emergency department with the increased space, with the increased number of beds, so that consultations can happen in a more rapid fashion. Patients don't have to wait in the waiting room. Patients can be seen by consultants and admitted to hospital if needed, or follow-up arranged, etc. So we definitely see it on a day-to-day basis in terms of patients having to wait for their care once they arrive to the hospital. We do our best within the facility that we have, and certainly we've managed. But I think with this announcement, it's very clear that we'll be able to do more than just manage. I think we'll be able to really significantly improve the care for the citizens of Richmond and also those that use their facilities from outside of Richmond.
Thanks, Dan.
We have time for one more question today, and that comes from Binder Sajjan, CTV.
Hi there, Premier. I know that you had a chance to speak with the Prime Minister last week with regards to the wildfire fight, and particularly how to clear some fuel from the forest floor. I know you had suggested perhaps that could be something that the armed forces could help with, and I'm just wondering how your discussions went and what your government is planning to do to increase the amount of fuel that is removed from the forest floor.
Well, thank you, Binder. And there have been calls for action on fuel mitigation for quite a long time in interface communities, those communities that are close to the forest, and they see the challenges. Kelowna is a classic example. A study done following the fires of 2003 led to primary recommendations to take action there, and we have been working on that with the Wildfire Service, BC Wildfire Service, and they want to turn to a more 12-month of the year process for those firefighters, whether they be in the north, in the interior, in the Kootenays, or even on the island, so that they can be taking a 12-month of year approach to the wildfire season. And that's really where I wanted to drive the Prime Minister. When we have armed forces personnel that are available and can be trained for the type of work that needs to be done, that strikes me as a useful national undertaking, not just here in British Columbia, but Northern Alberta, Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, where we have fire seasons, and even into the north to parts of the Yukon. So the Prime Minister was receptive to that. We met with our government, and his government met with Indigenous leaders from the Lytton area to work on plans to make sure that we're better engaging Indigenous peoples. This was a discussion we had in 2017, and quite frankly, we put in place MOUs, and in some parts of the province, like Tahltan Territory in the north, for example, positive initiatives are underway, but we have 203 Indigenous communities in British Columbia, and they all need different types of attention and access. So we're working at it. We're chipping away at it. But I know that there's a desire at the federal level to participate, and we're grateful for that.
Follow-up, Binder?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you about the 2017 report that your government commissioned after that wildfire season. The Forest Minister says about 92% of the recommendations are in place. Yet the report authors did say with climate change and extreme weather coming that there was an urgent need to take action on some of these recommendations. So what commitment can you make to the people of British Columbia in terms of trying to deal with some of these issues quickly?
good job, quick turnaround on a report from the 2017 fire season. And of course, before the ink was dry on that report, we were into the 2018 season, which was worse than the one before. And as I've said from the beginning of this year, going back to the obviously the start of fires in June and then the tragic loss of life in Lytton, is that we can no longer pretend, those who are out there that don't believe that climate change is materially affecting every aspect of life here in British Columbia, they're missing the point. And we need to redouble our efforts on our Clean BC initiative to make sure that we're building for the future, building smarter, building better, utilizing as best we can the resources available to be fire smart in our dwellings and in our interface areas. That's a commitment that we are absolutely rock solid to, and we have been working, as the minister said, on the recommendations of the Chapman-Abbott report, and we're going to continue to do that. And I'm hopeful that we'll have allies in the federal government to work on that, clearing out the fuel. That's the biggest challenge in interface communities, is there's too much fuel on the forest floor, and we need to give value to that and remove it in a way that will allow other industries to emerge. This is how I think we go forward. Our intentions paper with respect to revisiting how we do forestry in British Columbia also peels back to these fundamental challenges that climate change present for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.